Hello, ladies. Welcome to Wived. Happy Monday. I have a very special treat for you guys. In fact, I have two treats for you guys. So today's session is going to be extra special as we have two guest speakers from Kainat. So we're going to take about 20 to 25 minutes per guest speaker. And the way I'd like to structure this, please, is we'll have our guest speaker come and share some things with you guys. And then if you have questions, let's save them for Telegram, only because I want to be able to respect our speakers' times and cover everything that we want to cover for this session. So if you have questions, we'll go ahead and continue the discussion in the Telegram. And that way we can efficiently move through today's content. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring our first speaker. And she is a Kainat student and attorney, I think triple certified, if I'm not mistaken, double or triple certified life coach as well, nervous system informed. And so you're going to be getting a treat today. And so I'll go ahead and pin Diana. Welcome. Gorgeous.
Thanks for having me, Nina.
It's my pleasure. I can't wait to hear what you have to share with us.
I'm first of all super excited to be speaking today. And I'm excited because I'm going to have a conversation here that I really don't believe I could have outside of Wifed or outside of Kainat or outside of the space that you've created, Nina. And maybe one day in my community I'll be able to, but I'm not there yet. So thank you so much for just creating this platform. And to everyone in the group, hi, my name is Diana. On social media, I go by the Glow Up Guru. And as Nina said, a triple certified master life coach and an attorney. And I came up with the name because the methodology that I use with my coaching clients literally makes you glow. And so instead of growing older, you grow younger. And that's one of the things when people have been working with me for at least a couple months, the comments that they get is that you're starting to glow. But spirituality is a really big piece of what I do. And I'm going to start bringing that more into my social media, thanks to encouragement from Mina to feel more seen, but that's where the guru piece came in. And in case you're wondering, yes, it is a little bit of a hat tip to Mina as well. So with that said, I'm going to be talking today about prenups. I am a former divorce attorney, and I stopped practicing family law because I kept finding myself coaching my law clients. And there's ethical rules about what you can and can't bill for. And so I was like, okay, I just spent 2.5 hours on the phone with this client. My rate is $500 an hour, and the majority of the time was life coaching, not legal advice. So when you're at a law firm, you're supposed to bill for every second that you spend with a client. And I kept feeling ethically conflicted about, like, okay, I'm coaching, but I'm at work, and they called me at work. They didn't hire me as a coach. And so I was like, you know what, I don't want to do this anyway. Doing family law really confirmed me that I'd rather be the coach than the attorney. And so what I want to talk about, just before I get into it, I am a licensed attorney, but I am not your attorney. So even though I'm going to be giving quasi legal advice, it's not advice that you can rely on for your specific situation. If you want advice for your specific situation, you need to hire someone to represent you. And the reason is legal advice is highly fact specific. I'm going to tell a couple stories from when I was practicing to help you see why. But the kind of joke in the legal community is if someone asks you a question about, like, what's the law on this or what's the outcome in this situation, the answer is always it depends. And it just depends on various factors that alter how the law is applied. So, and then kind of as a little aside, so before this, like during my morning walk, I was listening to Huntress, and I have been meaning to get through that course like with a little bit more intention, but got to the point where Mina was talking about the new trophy wife, and it made me think of something that was relevant for this talk. So I'm going to bring that in as well. So just getting right into it. What is a prenup? So a lot of people think that prenups are a way for men to screw women or that they're these awful, terrible things. I want to help you remove all emotion from the idea of what a prenup is or isn't. And I want you to think of it as a tool, just like money is a tool, just like car insurance is a tool. Prenups are a tool. And what they do is they help quantify risk. So when you get married, which if you're single like me, one day you're going to get married, you are taking a chance. There's no guarantees in life, there's no guarantees in love. And so you're just making an informed decision and hoping for the best, right? Well, there is a dollar value to the risk that you're taking, right? Because when you enter a marriage, there is wealth, there's debt. And then as you stay with someone, the wealth or debt increases or decreases. And when you decide, or if you decide that the marriage doesn't work, you have to figure out how that's going to be split up. And so that, kind of question is like an unquantifiable legal risk. And so what prenups do is they put a dollar amount on those variables so that if things don't work out, there's less to argue over. And why that's really helpful is is as you might imagine, divorces activate. It's called the sympathetic nervous system or the stress response. And what happens when the stress response is activated is the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that helps you make decisions and think rationally. The blood flow to that part of your brain gets shut down. And so you can't think rationally, but worse, you literally cannot accurately hear, see, or even trust your own thoughts. So if you've ever been in an argument with someone and they say, well, you just said blah, 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 and you're like, that's not what I said. It's what they heard. And it's what they heard because their prefrontal cortex isn't getting adequate blood flow to function properly. So you can either negotiate the risk upfront via a prenup or negotiate the risk at the end of the relationship when both of your prefrontal cortexes aren't getting enough blood flow and you're incapable of thinking rationally, clearly, expansively. I know I'm speaking pretty quickly. It's just because I'm trying to get through a lot of information in the time allotted. So before I keep going, just can anyone just like do like a thumbs up or something to let me know that you're still with me? Okay, great. Awesome. So if you want to avoid having to figure out how to split things up when you are both in that stress response, then really the only option is to negotiate a prenup or a postnup. So, like I said, it's just a tool to help quantify risk. And why does that matter? Because there's no guarantees in marriage. None of us are mind readers. And so I want you to think of it, kind of like car insurance. But the real question that I think people don't ask because of a range of reasons, including consciousness, especially in the West, is when you're entering a marriage as a woman, are you marrying a provider? Because that is the actual, if you want to minimize risk, it's not a legal document. It's the identity of the person that you choose to marry. Are you marrying a provider? Providers behave very differently in divorces, even messy divorces, than non providers. And a lot of women think that if a man has money or if his family has money, he's a provider. And that is not true. Being a provider is about identity, it is not about net worth. So I have a girlfriend who, funny enough, I was actually a bridesmaid in her wedding and I did her divorce. Uh, More on that later, like in Telegram if you want to know. And she married a guy who was not a provider. They met during COVID, so they kind of were dating in isolation, which is a whole nother, other thing, not within the scope of this talk. But because they were dating in isolation, she wasn't really picking up on the fact that this is not a good match for her. So they get married, the world opens back up, marriage falls apart, and she says that she wants a divorce. Well, she didn't have a prenup, and she started a law firm while they were married. And she grew up poor. She's a farmer's granddaughter, grew up in the middle of Kansas. His family has money. If you know what Texas Motor Speedway is, they own the land underneath that. So his family has money. So she starts a law firm. It's doing well and she asks for a divorce and he tells her, and in case you're wondering like when this happened, this is literally in 2023 that this happened. She tells him she wants a divorce and he said he wanted $1 million, like, and I believe a judge would have awarded him $1 million in the divorce. So it's not that the dollar amount was unfair. It's that she thought, well, I mean, you come from money, I'm self-made, like, how dare you? But legally, he had every right to it, and they didn't have a prenup. But more importantly, within the marriage, she was the one paying all the bills. Like, she was the provider, and he was very much in his feminine in that marriage, and she was in the masculine. And so, you know, he wanted what the law said he was entitled to. And that's what happens anytime you marry a man who doesn't have an identity as being a provider. When the time comes for dissolution, he wants everything that he's entitled to. And if you look at celebrity divorces, especially, look at Halle Berry, look at Kelly Clarkson, look at Wendy Williams, you know, look at I mean, some cases, the Kardashians, you'll see these marriages where women are paying up these massive lump sums. And a lot of people think that only happens to celebrities, but it happens to women every single day. I know women it's happened to, including my own mother, when you do not pay attention to a man's identity as a provider before you marry him. There is one of my divorce clients who was in an arranged marriage. He's Indian. His wife was, they both were. And his wife filed for divorce. At the time of the divorce, they were both making $180,000 a year. Um, Throughout the marriage, he had been the sole provider. So, so she, I think, was working when they got married, stopped working when they had kids, went back to work, and they had one of the nastiest divorces I think I've seen. He'd been through like 3 or 4 lawyers before he came to me. I was friendly with the judge, and so I also got like the backstory kind of as it was a terrible, terrible, terrible divorce. The debt that had been accrued during the marriage was in the six figures. I can't remember the exact amount. And in the state of Texas, which I live in Dallas, Texas, in Texas, the way the law works is all the debt that's accrued from the day of the marriage to the day of divorce is split 50-50. Well, this particular guy was a provider. Even though his wife was making almost $200,000 a year, he said, that debt was accrued while she was my wife. I'm taking all of it. Even though it was a nasty divorce, even though, I mean, it was terrible. They were fighting over everything. If you know anything about Indian culture, there's jewelry that's gifted to the wife, but it's intended to go to, the son's wife. And so there's fighting over whether she got to keep the jewelry. It was a hot ass mess. There's so much. So for him to tell her that she had to pay half the debt, especially when, just so we're clear, the debt was primarily from her shopping. Like, she's got great taste. Like, shopping. Okay, honey, Neiman Marcus. That's where the bulk of the debt was. And he said that debt was accrued while she was my wife. It's my responsibility. I'm paying for it, period. And so that, telling you that because, so many people think, oh, all men, it's about consciousness. And if you choose someone with the identity of being a provider, he's going to behave very differently in a divorce than someone who doesn't. And the reason is it's very, very, very difficult to behave in a manner that's inconsistent with your identity. And because I'm a lawyer, I'm always thinking about like, okay, like what's the limit and how can I, tease that? And the best I've been able to come up with is in terms of exception is you can behave in a manner that's inconsistent with your identity long term if you're a spy. Other than that, I don't know how you, because it's kind of like with a car, if you let go of the steering wheel, it's going to naturally veer a certain direction based on its alignment. Well, that's your identity. You're going to, the real you is going to come up. And that's also why with dating, getting to know people in the context of relationships with your family. Oh my gosh, what happened to the judge happened, even though it was a white judge, it happened to be a judge whose wife was from an Asian culture, and so the jewelry went back to the husband. So, good question. But anyway, alignment. So, paying attention to identity as a provider. And so, what I wanted to say is, okay, I mentioned prenups are a risk shifting tool. I could go into all the specifics about a prenup and the provisions and the this and that, but honestly, you can get that on YouTube. I want to talk about the things that you can't get on YouTube. And so all you need to know is prenups are a contract, And the question that you need to ask anytime, there's things in a prenup that seem crazy is like, is this legally enforceable? Because that is what matters when things fall apart. And there's factors that make things enforceable, like, did they give you the prenup 5 seconds before the wedding and tell you to sign it, or the wedding's off? Okay, well, that is a thing that would tend to make the prenup not enforceable. Um, Contracts are generally going to be considered enforceable unless there's something illegal that they're asking you to do. So if the prenup says, I can divorce you if you gain weight, if the prenup says, you agree to not disclose my homosexual lifestyle, if the prenup says, like, it can say anything crazy. If it's not illegal, it's enforceable. And so one thing that you need to do, I said this before, I'll say it again. If you're asked to sign a prenup, you need to get your own attorney. And if you are in a completely different financial position than your partner, they need to pay for it. But it needs to be your own attorney. They need to give you the money, like in your bank account, so that you can go hire someone independently and have that person advise you based on your specific situation, because the specifics of your situation will determine what is fair and what's not fair. And um, so again, if it's not illegal, so if the husband's not saying, I need you to run a criminal drug ring, right? Then the terms of the prenup are probably going to be enforceable unless there's something about the way that they got you to sign it. Like if you were drunk, yeah, the legal defense is that you didn't have capacity. If they hand you the prenup right before the wedding, the legal defense is that you were under duress. So there's if they have you sign it, in the middle of the night when you should be sleeping, you can argue undue influence. So there's different factors, but everything is so fact specific that, the highest level I'll say is like, hire your own attorney, specifics you can look up on YouTube. If it's not illegal, it's probably enforceable. And, and then, yeah, like if there's things that you don't like that are in there but it's like, take it or leave it. The question that I would encourage you to ask and get really honest with yourself is, I started by saying there's no guarantees in life. You're taking chances on everything. So the question I'd ask is, will I be better off for having taken this chance on this marriage than having not taken it? And just be really, really honest with yourself. A lot of times, I think one thing that can keep women unnecessarily single is ego and thinking, I'm too good for this. I deserve better. I did. And it's not that you do or don't. It's that the fact of the matter is, marriages to the right people can open doors for you, can expand your social network, can give your children opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. Like, I personally think, my mom made a horrible choice marrying my father. However, when I finished law school, I was looking for a job and I wanted to get hired at Goldman Sachs, which, by the way, they hire about 3% of people who apply. My dad made a phone call to his college roommate. My parents went to Harvard. That's where they met. His college roommate went to law school, not Harvard Law School, but had friends in the Harvard Alumni Network. His college roommate made a phone call to one of his friends who went to Harvard Law, who was a partner at Goldman Sachs. And that person talked to me for like an hour and had a job offer a month later. Okay. So when I say, would you be better off? I mean, the reality of this world is that, there are opportunities that are very difficult for you to come by without being aligned with certain people, certain families. And yes, law of attraction, yes, quantum leaping, yes, all the things. But the right relationships just make your life easier. And so if you can, use marriage as a wormhole, then you love the person, the characters there, then think about whether the risk is worth it. So if you're handed a prenup that says automatic divorce if you gain 30 pounds, okay, yeah, that sucks. However, there are women who aren't told that and they gain 30 pounds and they get divorced anyway. So just think about, would I be better off? Yes or no? And that's not something that anyone can tell you. That's a conversation that you need to have with your intuition and your own, connection with God, and just know, like, because there's no guarantees. There is a girlfriend of mine who married the perfect man. Like, when I tell you, like, the perfect man, oh my God, like literally perfect. And, it's a girlfriend of mine who's very, very sweet. She's not very smart. She's real sweet. we love her, but she's not very smart. And she's dyslexic. So in addition to like just not being high IQ, she also has like learning processing things. And she went to Bible college, gets married in her 20s. And I'm just saying this, setting this up to be like, no marketable skills, okay? And marries this guy who's perfect. Like I can't I mean, he's just seriously amazing man. And they get their first house after like having 3 kids. He starts having headaches and decides that like, okay, like once we get all settled in the house, we'll go to a doctor. They go to the doctor once they're settled in the house, and it's exciting. Like they've got their kids and it's their first home, and they're so in love and they're so cute and all the things. Stage 4 brain cancer, and he's dead 6 months later. So when I say there's no guarantees, like you can pick the perfect guy, but you just don't know what's going to happen. And trying to solve for everything, uh, I personally believe, and we've said all beliefs are limiting beliefs, some are just more expensive, but I personally believe trying to solve for every single little variable is crazy town because you just don't know. All we know is that we're breathing in this moment, but there's, nothing is guaranteed. So you just make the best choice you can with the facts that are available to you in the moment and trust that the future will handle itself. And, that's honey, it's the best you can do. What I don't like is a lot of women will talk to divorce attorneys and they'll say, everyone needs a prenup. And the thing is, when you do family law, you see train wrecks every single day. And so you think, worst case scenario, your mind just goes straight there. And even if, like, there's some interviews that are on my Instagram now where I did with a woman who's a very successful divorce attorney here in Dallas. She's also a strong Catholic. She's been married 40 years. Her own marriage is great, but she sees train wrecks every day. So the advice that she gives is not based on her own personal life. It's based on who walks into her office and who's, made her the success that she is. And so just keep that in mind when you're going to a divorce lawyer. Like they're a lot less likely to think about your specific situation, your specific dynamic, and more likely to think about, um, you know, worst case scenario. Um, so I started by mentioning Huntress because this morning when I was walking, I listened to the part where, and I can't believe, like just memory lane, where Mina was talking about this woman on Instagram or social media called New Trophy Wife, whose husband molested her daughters. And a little bit of backstory. So I was actually like one of the kind of leaders inside of her private community when she was, um, well, early on. And I remember like as her following got bigger and bigger and bigger, she kept making comments. And because just my intuition told me her husband's trying to silence her. And she said, oh, my husband's all over me. And my husband did it. He's trying to, and, um, uh, ultimately she got pregnant and stopped posting and then kind of reappeared 6 months later talking about her husband assaulted her. But um, I think of her as another example of, again, there's no guarantees. Like this is a woman who went into a marriage thinking that she'd found a provider, thinking that she'd found, yeah, this example of a godly man. But if you kind of peel back the layers, like she was coming in from a very wounded, feminine, survival place. And that when you're in that space, you're a lot more likely to attract a predator and less likely to attract a true provider. And predators and providers, just like guys with money and they can look the same, but they are not. And so yes, you can have the legal documents, but really the true protection is having a very strong connection to source. I'm a Christian, so I say God, but I know not everyone is. So whatever label you use, quantum field universe, having a strong connection to that and letting that guide you in your decision making about your life, every aspect of your life, but particularly who you share your life with, is the ultimate protection. You can sign a prenup, you can not sign a prenup, you can, end up getting a pool of money when you get divorced, or you can end up having to pay someone a lot of money. But whether or not you're ultimately going to be okay is a function of you really trusting the divine to guide every aspect of your life and not relying solely on what you can see. It's very counterintuitive. Well, I'm say all the time is what we can see is the illusion, and what's invisible is reality. So paying attention to the true reality, the invisible, the divine, like the whispers, the nudges. I am sure that when Isis was dating her soon to be ex-husband, he seemed like a gift from God. But the Bible talks about how Satan appears as an angel of light. And so trusting your eyes when it comes to marriage is um, can lead to very painful results both for you and for your children. So, have your legal protections in place, but also make sure that you are spiritually connected and relying on that first and foremost in your decision making. So that's all. You guys are also beautiful. And thank you for letting me start your Monday morning here inside of Wife.
Thank you so much, Diana. That was amazing. It was amazing. I've been trying to convince Diana to open up like a membership or something where women can plug into her and her brain and her wisdom. Because it's, as someone that had to deal with attorneys in my own divorce and all that stuff, it's very intimidating walking into like a like I remember my original attorney was a man and then I had switched over to a female. There was a lot there, and you're like in a state of distress when you're going through a divorce, and a lot of times the attorneys don't know how to hold that. That's what made Diana want to become someone that can fully hold that and become certified in nervous system and all the extra stuff. So hopefully, this will convince her that she needs to plug into, there needs to be some kind of a vortex, and we'll talk more about that in Kainat. Speed is starting tomorrow, so we'll talk about that. But some kind of a membership where women can plug into and they can get this information, not just from a legal standpoint, but like a woman of faith, a woman that actually believes in marriage. Because a lot of times it feels like these divorce attorneys get so jaded from all the divorces that they almost don't believe it. Like you don't. I remember when I was uncertain about whether I was going to divorce my ex or not, there was an attorney that kept pressuring me, almost like bullying me to make the decision fast. And I was pregnant. Like I'm trying to like navigate all this stuff while being pregnant with family voices saying you can't get the divorce, like all the stuff. And like I felt not only bullied by my family, but then bullied by this attorney to
Yeah.
make a decision fast or not make a decision, right? And so I think just having someone with these multi dimensions, you need a membership or something where people can plug into. And so, because here's the thing, even if you're not going to divorce, this kind of stuff is like to me, this is interesting. I'm like, this is amazing. Like I didn't even know postnups were a thing. And there's just so much. Like I found out a couple of years ago, that postnups were a thing. I'm like, this is great because what if you get married and you have nothing and then you build your wealth separately, and then there's certain assets that you want to protect, right? Like for example, I have intellectual property that have nothing to do with my husband, my books and my courses, and I want to make sure that if something were to happen to me or if we got divorced, that stuff is going to go into the hands of my children. And that's not going to be something that, that if he gets remarried or whatever, that's going to be in danger. So these are all things to be curious about, not from a fear state. What's really, I think, scary is when you find this stuff in the midst of when you're like really triggered from a divorce versus just being curious and learning. So, Diana, that was gold. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and she's really like speaking more and more about this stuff on her social media. I think there's a little bit of voice activation that we've all had to do because there can be so much pushback on social media, but every day I see you getting even more activated in your voice and really honestly speaking your truth because this is the stuff people really need to hear. And I'm so glad that what you said in the beginning, that you feel safe to be able to have the real conversations in here. And I can't wait for you to be in a place where you feel safe to have these conversations everywhere because
Oh my
women need
God.
to be hearing this.
Yeah. Thank you. I received that, and like I'm having chills right now. So thank you.
So let's take a little 5-minute break and we'll be back. And then we have our second treat. I feel like we're like just, we've got so much dessert going on too. And the funny thing is that both of them are like glow up experts, but in their own way. So we're having a glow up day over here. Like this is better than going to the spa. Like this is better than anything. So let's take a little 5-minute break, go get your drinks refreshed, and then we will be back. And Diana, if you can put your information, everything that you have, all the places they can connect with you. And also, you need to keep us posted on that membership. I'll be working with you on that in Gyna. So we
Please.
need that
Okay.
going. Okay. All right. We'll be back.